Okay, this video is about retrieval. How do you get information out of your long-term memory? So retrieval, well, like I said, is getting information out of your long-term memory. So once you put it in, so we've encoded it, we've stored it, now we got to get it out. So retrieval involves recall, recognition, and relearning. So remember, recall, in class I gave you the example at the very beginning of when we started talking about memory, where you had to write down as many of the names of the seven dwarves as you could think of. Okay, that requires recall. You're having to think of it off the top of your head, you might say. Okay, recognition, on the other hand, is going to be when I gave you a list of potential names of the seven dwarves, and you had to pick out which ones were actually dwarves' names. Okay. Relearning is going to be when you already learned something, but when you're kind of dusting it off out of your long-term memory, you kind of have to relearn it, and you have to go through it and experience it a little bit again. But it go a lot faster than the first time. So, for example, if you remember the kids' game Memory, with the little cards and the pictures on them. I think I have like two different versions of this at my house. But the kids' game Memory has all those little cards, and you're supposed to spread them all out. Okay, so does that use recall, recognition, or relearning? This uses recall because you have to remember where the pictures are, where the cards are, to be able to be successful in the game. So, you have to match up the two fish, for example. Okay. Multiple choice questions, on the other hand, multiple choice questions, do they use recall, recognition, or relearning? So multiple choice uses recognition because when you're reading the question, you're reading the answers and all the potential answers that are there. Recognition is going to be recognizing what is the correct answer. And lastly, have you ever been ice skating? Okay, ice skating is one of those things, just like riding a bike, right? If it's been a while, for example, for myself, when I was in elementary school, we had a ice skating rink. Every elementary school in Fargo has a ice skating rink, and it was part of gym that you were working on ice skating, and it was a cool little unit. I always loved it. I got to be decent. I taught myself how to ice skate. I was decent, but I haven't been on ice skates in years. Okay, if I wouldn't put on ice skates right now, I would have to relearn how to ice skate. Okay, it's in my long-term memory somewhere, but I'm going to have to reorient myself to be able to get there. Same thing with, like riding a bike, skiing, those skills that, they kind of get a little rusty if you don't use them. And so you may have to kind of relearn it a little bit, but it'll go a lot faster than the first time you learned it. Okay. Also, you will have retrieval cues. So keep in mind that sometimes getting your information out of your brain will require some work. So one thing that could happen is you may need some priming. So priming is this idea that you have associations with information. It's going to activate your memory. Okay, so if you remember, priming is going to be kind of like where you're kind of giving yourselves clues as to what's actually going on. Okay, so it's remembering, but not quite remembering. So it's kind of like refreshing your brain, kind of a thing. So I had this picture. It says, you need to purchase some new spectacles. So again, priming you, getting you ready for that kind of a thing. So priming is kind of that getting you ready to see things and think things, okay? So, for example, seeing or hearing the word rabbit activates the concept of a rabbit in your head, and then when you see the word H-A-I-R, okay, you're going to say it's hair, and you're going to think of a hair like a rabbit. Priming. Other things to consider is that context, when you experience something, will also help with retrieval. So this is the idea, if you remember way back to the beginning of memory, we did a true-false thing, and we talked about if it's true that if you learn something when you were drunk, you are more likely to remember it when you're drunk again. That's the same idea here. This also goes for if, for example, have you had this experience where you were in your bedroom and you're like, oh, I got to make sure I get this out of the kitchen. So you go over to the kitchen, you get in the kitchen, and you're standing there like, what did I come in the kitchen for? I don't remember. And you don't remember, you go back to your bedroom, and then you remember what you were supposed to go to the kitchen for, okay? The context will help you. Being in that room, again, will help you. It also helps with, for example, smells or sights or sounds. Just being put in that scenario again will help you remember. That's also why sometimes they, like, for example, police officers, will get a witness in that same location again, trying to get them to remember what happened. Now, sometimes that will also cross over into deja vu, where deja vu is the idea where you feel like you've experienced this before, but more often than not, it's not that you've actually experienced before, but the context is very similar to something you've experienced before. For example, hotel rooms. Have you ever gone to this where you go in a hotel room and you look around and you're like, man, have we been here before? Have we stayed at this hotel before? And your parents will say, no, we've never stayed here before. Well, the reason it seems familiar is because they're all so generic, and especially if it's the same like hotel chain, they're oftentimes set up the exact same way. So that context will make you think that you have experienced something before. Now, we also have mood congruent memories, which can help us remember events that fit with our current mood. I think in your homework I asked you something about your birthday. Generally speaking, hopefully you're happy on your birthday, you're in a good mood on your birthday, and so then everything seems like everything is going well and everything should be happy on your birthday. But you also have the reverse happen sometimes where and sometimes this may happen where if you've gotten into a movie or a TV show and you're really drawn into the characters and everything, but you turn it off and maybe it was a scary movie, so then you're like scared, all of a sudden you're scared of the dark, or I've read about this where maybe it was a movie that they had fighting couples or something like that, and they're arguing, and there's divorce and whatever. And then after you turn off the movie, you're just like you're getting so that you're thinking about all the negative things that your significant other does, and you're like, yeah, they do that too, and I hate it when they do that. Man, that makes me mad, and you're just getting yourself worked up. So you kind of think about things that fit your own mood. So I have this picture. It says Stickman's really bad day. So if you've ever seen those, caution signs about, slippery wet floor and, going over the handlebars and all these other things. And so this is showing that, when you have a bad day, everything you're like, man, everything seems to be bad. And look at all these tiny little things that add up. And this is all the things that were going bad today. When you're in a good mood, on reflection, really, it wasn't that bad. Okay, so these are kinds of the things that happen with retrieval and when we're getting memories out of long-term information, long-term memory. All right, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions.